our planet Earth. A world of mystery and imagination, science and wonder, that is constantly being gazed upon and unraveled by the finest minds humanity has to offer. Welcome to the UniV podcast, the show that presents a free-flowing conversation with those beings at the very center of the world of academia and research from all around the globe, with your host, Simon-Holland.
Welcome to the very first UniV podcast. We're very excited to have on the show Professor John Hutchinson from the Royal Veterinary College at the University of London. John is based within the Structure and Motion Laboratory and has worked somewhat predominantly in the field of evolutionary biomechanics, particularly in large terrestrial vertebrates such as elephants, crocodiles, giraffe, and of course the mighty dinosaurs. He recently appeared on the BBC documentary Attenborough and the Giant Dinosaur with Sir David himself, discussing the locomotion of elephants and the large, yet unnamed titanosaur, of which the documentary investigates. It is with great enthusiasm that I welcome Professor John Hutchinson to the show. I'd like to welcome you to the show and thank you for speaking with us.
Sure, yeah, no problem.
Now, what attracted you to this and how did you get into it?
So generally we're looking for information on the sequence of changes within a group. So how did size change, for example? So we're either relying on living animals and measurements of living animals or measurements of fossils to the degree that the quality of the fossil record allows it. And that allows us to piece together the order in which things happen through evolutionary history. And that's kind of the fundamental question we're generally after first, the pattern of evolution in evolutionary biology. So that's one of the general kinds of questions I'm very interested in. And that I got excited about that, I guess, first from learning about Darwin as an undergraduate. I got really excited in Darwin as a person as well as a historical person of major historical influence and the whole history of evolutionary thought, how he plays a role in that. And then later I got interested in dinosaurs, kind of reignited my childhood interest in dinosaurs and other giant animals, and married the two things together, my passion for evolution and my passion for giant animals. So that naturally became, well, how did large land animals evolve?
It's funny you mentioned Darwin because in preparation to speak with you, that was the book that I picked up and I kind of tried to speed read it a little bit beforehand. and I think what they said in the first few pages, they start mentioning that, that he's building upon a lot of people's work. It's something that it's like a sort of a rich history that has been pieced together bit by bit. Do you find yourself in that situation? You know, you refer to sort of the tides of history.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Any scientist worth their salt is depending a lot on the work of people that came before them. That's kind of the whole point to a degree of doing science, is that we want to gradually build up a reservoir of knowledge so that future scientists can build upon that. So we're adding levels you could think of it metaphorically as a building, that we're adding floors on top of floors, and periodically we realize some of the floors we built upon might not be as strong as we thought they were, and things need to be reconstructed, but the process works generally. So for me, that's part of the fun of science, is learning what we knew about a subject or thought we knew, and then testing to see, is that presumed knowledge accurate, and what new knowledge can we add on top of that and get further toward understanding the natural world.
So originally you're an American and you found your way now from the University of Wisconsin, and now you're at the University of London. Was that kind of history is the history that London has with the Royal Society, which you're also involved in, was that part of the attraction to moving over there, or how'd you get over there?
Oh, yeah, it was a huge attraction. I had lived here. My father was a professor, and he brought us out here on a sabbatical that he did in, I think it was around 1982, the spring and summer, roughly, of 1982 or 1983. So we lived out in Norwich, which is kind of eastern England, although occasionally came through London, and I really enjoyed living in England back then when I was, 11 or 12 years old. And so when this job opportunity came up in London, I thought, well, that'd be a really fun adventure to try living and working out there and kind of shake things up in my career, try something different in a slightly different society and culture, as well as the famously dynamic city of London and its immense and deep scientific history. I found it really wonderful. The rich history of science that's here. A lot of natural history research really got started in this area.
Yeah. And so you're also involved with the Royal Society. So, I mean, you're really stepping in the footsteps, like literally in the same hallways as, the Christopher Wren and Robert Hooke and guys like that. Do you feel that kind of, that history when you walk, around the university and, veterinary science and diagrams up on the walls and that kind of thing?
Oh, so yeah, I mean, I interact with the Royal Society of the United Kingdom, which, I'm not a fellow of the Royal Society, which is kind of one of these prestigious honorary posts, but I do interact with fellows of the Royal Society and get some funding from that society. But our college, the Royal Veterinary College, is completely separate from that that old institution, the Royal Society. They're separate royal institutions completely, although a lot of synergy between them. And I've definitely benefited from that synergy. That there's the Royal Society, which has Richard Owen and Darwin and many other very, very famous scientists have been part of that, and many famous scientists today are as well, including some of my collaborators. But the Royal Veterinary College has been around for about as long, very roughly, give or take 100 years, as the Royal Society. So there's a very long history there, going back to the late 1700s.
Yeah, they used to do some.
Our college has been around.
Sorry, they used to do some really cool, experiments when they're kind of figuring things out. Do you find yourself in that sort of insight? There's a lot of attention to detail, but do you is there any experiments that you sort of wish that you could do? Big sort of, So what's on your bucket list, I guess, as a scientist?
Well, what's on my bucket list as a scientist? Like, are you thinking classic experiments to redo, or totally new experiments that no one has done before?
Oh, I guess you'd be giving away some games trade secrets if you could told us the new ones. But yeah, we don't want to do that. We don't want to give anything away. But Well, so I mean, I can say some kind of bucket list things. There are animals I'd love to work with. A lot of the animals I work with them because I love them. I think they're amazing animals. And that's one way that biologists choose what to work on, is they work on whatever interests them, whatever excites them. I think I'm that kind of scientist more than kind of a model organism scientist who's, someone who works on an organism because it's the best organism to study to answer whatever they're interested in terms of some broader question. So a lot of people study fruit flies because their genetics are really well worked out. They're a great model organism for answering questions about genetics. I tend to just find animals that I'm interested in and study them. So I'd be really excited to work on pangolins, these armored mammals that roam parts of Asia and Africa. I've always found them really cute and fascinating. They can walk on two legs in kind of a dinosaur-like posture. So I would love to study them. And they're also threatened by a lot of problems these days. There's a lot of trade, illegal wildlife trade in pangolins to feed the hunger for their skin and meat in especially East Asian markets. So there's some ways potentially we could even help out in some way in helping bring attention to this major problem that may bring these really cool animals to extinction within even our lifetimes. So penguins, major bucket list animal, definitely. I'm going to borrow a line and I'm going to butcher this, but it's from Bill Bryson's, one of Bill Bryson's works. And he said, as good as a planet is at supporting life, it is much better at exterminating it. And it's estimated that 99.99 reoccurring percent of all species that have ever appeared on the planet no longer exist. So everything. So That statement is a marvelous scale. How would a point like that work in your experience? You've seen some creatures work and some divisions of creatures, fail miserably. What's the kind of separating factor there?
Okay, that's an interesting question. So that kind of relates to the idea of deep time, that the Earth has an incredibly long history, and our brains are not well suited to thinking in terms of millions or let alone billions of years. And there have been a lot of species around in those, a little over 4 billion years of life's history on Earth. So it's just part of ecology and evolution that species inevitably go extinct. No species lives forever. No species ever has, as far as we know. Change is the rule, really, and extinction is part of that change, which makes room for other organisms to take the place of organisms that have gone extinct, or species, rather. So extinction is a natural part of the process of life, but it also means there's a lot of diversity out there. And there's a lot of diversity right now. There's a large number, millions and millions of species alive now, but that pales in comparison to the number of species that have ever existed. So there's a lot of things we can study right now in nature that are live. We can observe them directly and do amazing experiments and other measurements. But it's a really fun challenge as a scientist to try to tackle all the remaining biodiversity that's out there in terms of extinct life and try to bring them into our whole picture of biology, because our understanding of biology should apply just as well to extinct animals as living animals, and extinct animals should be able to contribute to our understanding of the rules of life, so to speak, just as much or even more so than living animals do, given that there are more extinct animals than living ones. So I think there's an immense potential of extinct life to teach us about what is possible in life, what can life do or not do, because the living animals today probably aren't a good enough sample of what really is possible. In fact, we know that's true. They're not enough. They might tell us a lot about some of the rules of life, but if we can harness what's out there in the fossil record, there is vast, staggering potential to answer very broad questions and strengthen our understanding of how life works.
Now, you appeared just recently in David Attenborough's documentary, Attenborough and the Giant Dinosaur, and you kind of you were the large animal specialist at that point, the locomotion specialist. So
yep, that's one of my niches, definitely.
Completely unrelated to that, but no, not really. Is there much advantage left of being big these days? I mean, we're just looking at. We've got a guy called Andrew DeRocha coming up, and he works with polar bears. And it seems apparent that the biggest issues facing the bears is just how much energy they require. Like, the ice thinning and melting, they got to travel further, swimming and searching for food. So sort of the energy balance is all out of whack. Is that something we saw with the dinosaurs and their inherent failure when times got tough? And is there any advantage left for being big anymore?
One answer to that question would be that everything in life has trade-offs. For any advantage, there's almost always a disadvantage. So in the case of being big, there are advantages that by being big, you're tough, you're hard to kill, you can monopolize resources like territory or food or mates because you're big, and less susceptible to predators and so forth. But the disadvantage is big animals need a lot of food and water and so forth to stay alive, and so they're very susceptible to either dying off individually if they don't have enough resources, or even going extinct as a species, because there tend not to be as many big animals as small animals, all else being equal. Bigger animals, by being fewer in number, are more susceptible to extinction. Yep. And so in the case of dinosaurs, that makes a lot of sense that many dinosaurs were very big at the time of the extinction of dinosaurs. And so it makes sense that big dinosaurs got wiped out. They would have been the most vulnerable of all species, probably. But what doesn't make sense is that there were small dinosaurs that were around at the time of the end Cretaceous extinction of dinosaurs. some of which were